Welcome to another edition of the Coach Daboll Show, presented by Stop & Shop. I'm Bob Papa. On Sunday, the Giants host the Washington Commanders, an important NFC East showdown. We got a big show lined up for you. Carl Banks will go to the coaches' tape with strategy. We have above the numbers and a whole lot more. Plus, this is the Giants' legacy game against Washington. They'll be wearing those old unis from the 80s and the 90s. I'd like to welcome in two-time Super Bowl champion Carl Banks, who wore that uniform proudly, and the head coach of the New York Giants, Brian Daboll. And Coach and Carl, first I'll start with you, the uniforms. I know they kind of get you fired up, taking you back to the glory days.
Well, it does represent some of the formative years of what Giants football is known for, so it does bring back fond memories.
Coach, obviously the embracing of tradition, something that you've done a great job of since coming over as head coach, kind of get you fired up a little bit knowing that that's a legacy game?
Yeah, absolutely. All the people that have come before us really paved the way, from the coaches to the players, and again, such a strong history of tradition here. Honored to be part of it.
So, little mini bye this past weekend, coming off the Dallas game on Thanksgiving. Did you learn a little bit more in that time to kind of sit back and look?
Yeah, you know, you're constantly evaluating. You take a look at some of the things from the previous few games that you did after the bye, and get on to Washington.
Coach, it's a interesting stretch here because the bulk of the division is right here in front of you, and it's a one-game proposition each week. But is there something or a message now to this team and say, look, here's division. These games count a little bit more than the others?
Yeah, and those are good conversations to have, because that means you're playing meaningful games in December, which was a goal of ours, and December's here, and that's what we're doing. So again, some division games, none more important than this week against Washington.
I know we're going to look back at some things from the Dallas game in the next segment and building blocks, but listen, you were down some bodies. That's the story of the National Football League. Your team competed, though, at a very high level in this football game. How proud of you with the way they fought, and then there were some teaching points too, because there were some opportunities there. The third and goal touchdown, the missed opportunity on 4th and 1, where you're right in that football game.
Yeah, no, again, they did compete. We just, we didn't do enough. All of us didn't do enough to get the job done. But at the end of the day, you're charged with winning or losing, and unfortunately, came up on the wrong end of it. But again, the mindset, the way they competed, the way they stuck together, 60 minutes, that's what we're looking to build on.
And as you evaluate, Coach, and you're down now on the depth chart in that game, you have to look at some of the performances and say, okay, we're developing this young player. He's on schedule because he did a lot of good things right. There were a few of those in that game.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought Nick McLeod did a great job, Flott, before he got injured. We had three guys working in interior part of the line that were a little bit different, or tackle. So there were plenty of guys that had gotten some more reps than previously, and that'll serve us in the long run.
Coach, Nick Gates, obviously this has been an incredible story. It's Carl's favorite guy. Just talk about what he's been able to do, and then to play the game at center for you after having so much time off.
Yeah, just testament to the young man. He's worked extremely hard to get back to where he's been. This game was center the whole game. I thought he did a lot of really good things for us. He's played at guard some, he's played at tackle some for us, he's played at tight end. I'm talking about since we've been practicing. So very flexible guy in terms of an offensive lineman.
I know you're not, this isn't the time of year to be throwing bouquets at people, but talk about your staff and the job that they've done. Kind of what Carl's point was. I mean, here's a guy like Isaiah Hodgins, who you bring in, and suddenly he's got a role within your offense, and he's making plays for you. The job that the staff has done to get these guys ready to play.
Yeah, very fortunate to work with all the people on our staff. I think they've done a really good job up to this point. We've still got a long way to go here, the whole month of December and early part of January, but they've done a really good job of working with the players and helping them improve on a day-to-day basis.
Just getting started here on the program. When we come back, Carl and Coach go to the auditorium for building blocks here on the Coach Daboll Show, presented by Stop & Shop.
Welcome back to the Coach Daboll Show. Coach, time for some building blocks. Let's take a look at some of the things that went well in the game.
Sure. This is our last touchdown here to Richie. We're down at the 1 yard line, and we end up calling a kind of a three-man pass concept over here with, 19 coming outside here, 86 forcing an outside release, and then Richie kind of using 86 as he goes ahead and forces the outside release to get a little bit of a rub. It's good protection. We got a clean pocket for Daniel. Slayton does a good job of forcing the outside release. The defensive back gets his hands on him, tries to jam him. Daniel puts it on his outside pad and was able to turn in and get the touchdown here to give us a chance here at the end of the game with this onside kick.
So, Coach, when we look at this play, the point person in their triangle is actually, he benefits the offense because by engaging Slayton, he can't get off to take Richie James in the flat.
Exactly right. And
so he does the job.
He does the job. It's two outside releases, one by Galladay, one by Slayton. Kind of take digs out of here, and this defender go ahead and presses on Slayton. And now the guy that's covering Richie is all the way inside here. So we get an easy throw out there to the flat.
Now, if they play that a little differently, the two outside releases still gives you some options, right?
It absolutely does. And, in this case, Slayton's getting jammed up, so he just kind of lets him ride him down the line of scrimmage. But Slayton actually has a route that would accompany this if this was played a little differently. Say if this guy came off of him, or this guy comboed off of this guy, we'd have a couple different options based on how the defense plays it.
And the timing for the quarterback would
it's
still
quick.
be the same, right?
It would be, and he could just hang just a little bit to see how this unfolds. But in this case, he sees it's really locked all the way through, so it's kind of a one-man, easy read throw if they play it like this.
Now, I'm seeing the route by the back. Obviously, you got to keep the other side of the defense honest, but there has to be an option there too, right?
He does. He has a two-way go. He can run out, he can run in, he can sit. So there's a lot of different options on this 5-out play, and it's just based on the look of the defense of which side the quarterback's going to go to.
I hear this from a different angle.
Pause it here. Good inside-out protection here all the way through. He's not going to be hanging on to this long, so it gives him an opportunity to get a clean throw off on this.
And obviously, you look at the footwork, but these are the type of plays that you want to get out in a hurry because they get batted down often,
Exactly right. In this case, they run a little game over here, so it gives them a cleaner throwing lane as well.
All right, Coach, let's go on to the next play.
Sure. Okay, so this was a big play at the end of the quarter here. 3rd and 15, obvious passing situation unless they want to run a draw or some type of screen. And we have kind of man-to-man coverage up top. CD is here at number 3. And we kind of have Love pushing to half the field and 24 kind of just hanging out here for a minute, knowing that he's going to push to the field. So we essentially have a couple guys over the top of CD as the play develops, whether it's a half field here or Belton running across back here. So Darnay's playing with it, inside technique, and just does a good job of getting his hands up, tip ball, and these guys are certainly aware of where 88 is. To give us this opportunity to go ahead and finish it on an interception.
Now, Coach, we can't go without acknowledging the fact that this is not a full complement of your starters in the defensive backfield, but yet the execution here, there's not a lot of daylight with any of these receivers in versus this coverage.
Yeah, pretty tight coverage. Protected here on the back end by the two safeties. One going to the half and another one disguising a little bit. But I'd say that, overall well executed. And, if you look, once we get to the end zone view of it, I think Kayvon does a really good job of rushing and getting to the spot and putting a little bit of pressure on Dak with just a good finish.
And then just the position of Darnay Holmes forces the quarterback to kind of throw it to his back shoulder.
Yep.
Which enabled that ball to be tipped.
Yep. And he plays right through his hands, and nice job by Julian being where he's supposed to be with eyes on the quarterback and reacting to the ball.
Now let's take a look at the rush here because that had a big influence on this as well, as you mentioned.
Yep, just 4-man rush. Again, 3rd and long. But I think Kayvon does a nice job on his bull rush and just getting to the spot here. Leo's got his hands up. Everything affects the quarterback in terms of ball disruption.
You can see the quarterback could not step into that.
That's exactly right.
Just basically throwing it off his tiptoes.
It's all tied together.
And those are the type of plays when you are undermanned that the execution is very important, keeping you in games like this. And now let's take a look at the special teams.
Yep. So this was, the beginning part. Defense had a good stop. This was the drive we had down there where we went backwards. We ended up scoring. It was called back, and we went back again. So, again, decision to make here. We were, 4th and 32. There's not really much you can do. You can either decide to take a penalty and, try to punt it, but have a lot of confidence in Graham. He's done a great job for us all year. We're indoors. It's great conditions, and, just, again, the amount of times he's made these kicks out at practice, it's a comforting thing knowing you have a kicker that has executed well under pressure and can make these long ones, which was the start of the game, which it's all tied together. I thought our protection was better than it was the week previously, and the operation was smooth and clean.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too, Coach. When you look at the interior, or from tackle to center on both sides, that's where the pressure was the week before. So you can almost anticipate getting that.
That's exactly right.
And even more pressure, and those guys seem like really got it short up here.
Yeah, did a much better job this week, really posting down, staying strong on their inside foot, protecting their inside gap, and just good timing by Graham. And 57-yarder, those aren't easy.
No, they're not.
That was good to get 3 points on that drive. Would have liked to get more, but complimentary football with the defensive stop, and then obviously the kicking game taking care of the 3 points.
Well, Coach, I appreciate it. We're all smarter as a result of this building block segment.
Thanks, Carl.
We'll be back with more of the Coach Daboll Show.
Welcome back to the Coach Daboll Show, presented by Stop & Shop. Time for this week's edition of Head to Head. Here's Paul Dottino and Sean O'Hara.
Okay, so let's go head to head for the Giants game against the Washington Commanders on Sunday. First up, Sean, Mark Lewinsky against Daron Payne. Now, this is a big one. For as far as Lewinsky goes, the Giants are running for 5 yards a pop when going directly behind right guard. He's been pretty strong in the running game. Payne, this guy has been incredible. He's good against the run, he's good against the pass, and oh, by the way, he's got 5 pass deflections at the line of scrimmage. The Giants, though, they need to keep an eye on him.
You got to treat it like any other player, but you have to have more of a sense of urgency to just be more of a pest, I would say. Just making sure that you're on, you're on everybody all the time. If they're trying to put their hands up, making sure that you're either running them, pull, whatever you got to do, pull them down, stay on them, run block, whatever. You got to play late into the downs. I think that's the mindset that we should have regardless.
Mark Lewinsky has been extremely durable for the Giants, as you can see, playing in 99% of the offensive snaps. And I think one of the challenges he's going to have, obviously, against a guy like Daron Payne is in pass protection. All right, it's the change of direction that Daron Payne really creates a lot of issues with guards. And that's been the one area that I think Mark Lewinsky has struggled with this year, was the outside move to the inside move, or an inside defender to the outside move. That change of direction is something that he has really struggled with, and that's what has allowed those 3 sacks. Now, I think the one thing that jumps out at me with Daron Payne is that he's so much quicker now. He's faster. His hands are better. He has really morphed into a great pass rusher, whereas, Paul, when he came into the league, first and second down was really his forte. Now he's added that pass rushing skills on third down that can create some havoc.
Let's go to our second matchup. Jalen Smith against Brian Robinson. Now, about a month ago, Jalen Smith moved to the middle linebacker spot. Remember, he was on the weak side during that time. 27 tackles, tied for second on the Giants. He has really done a good job against the run. 10 tackles last week against Dallas, his season high. Robinson, guy had 100 yards for the first time this season last week against Atlanta, and he runs with ferocity. That's why the Giants know they need to hit him hard.
Great back with great tenacity. Anytime you play a back like that, it's important that you're very sound in your attention to detail, being in the gap that you're supposed to be in, understanding your gap integrity and leverage. He's a guy that's a force. He's a force to reckon with. So you got to make sure you bring your feet up under you. You got to make sure you gang tackle. It's going to take 11 men, to try and contain number 8.
Gibson also runs the ball very well. So what is the best thing that this team can do to correct the rush defense that's had some trouble the last few weeks?
It's about being sound. We got to play sound football. We got to execute longer than the other team. And the battle is going to be won in the trenches as well. So the biggest thing for us is making sure that we're locked and loaded, we're prepared. They got a great backfield, great speed all across the board. Gibson can even run routes out the backfield as well. Just very versatile and dynamic. So for us, we got to bring our A game.
I'm really looking forward to this matchup, the veteran linebacker versus the young pup with the fresh legs right here. And Jalen Smith, one of the things that I think he's brought to this Giants defense is not just the intensity, but the sure tackles. You don't see Jalen Smith miss a lot of tackles. When he gets his arms wrapped around guys, they go down. He's going to need that against Brian Robinson because, Paul, as you mentioned, he runs hard. He's got a young pop to his legs. And you mentioned the big game that he had last week against the Atlanta Falcons. In addition to these rushing stats, he had 2 catches for 20 yards, and on his touchdown reception, he trucked a safety. So, listen, he brings a truck stick factor with the running game and as a running back out of the backfield. So, I think this is going to be very pivotal, not just for Jalen Smith, who whenever you're the Mike linebacker, you have to shadow the running back, all right? You almost are like their mirror, all right? Anytime they open up to the wide, you've got to mimic them defensively and shadow them. The real challenge is going to be on screens and in the passing game. They're going to try to get Brian Robinson in space and try to create that speed mismatch against Jalen.
One thing to remember about Robinson, of running backs with over 100 carries this year, he's only been stopped for a loss 6 times, tied for second fewest in the National Football League. That'll do it for head-to-head this week. Now we go back to Bob.
Carl, with the emergence of Brian Robinson and with Antonio Gibson, Washington now has a legit 1-2 punch. Just like last week's game, the off-the-ball backers are going to play a huge role.
Yeah, and it's everyone that has a role in this defense, but the off-the-ball linebackers have to have, some gap integrity and be where they're supposed to be because the dirty work is done up front. If you can be where you're supposed to be, Leonard Williams, Dexter Lawrence and company will make your job so much easier. Even if you get blocked in the hole, it's going to be a minimal gain.
It'll be an interesting battle in the trenches when Giants take on Washington. We'll take a timeout. When we come back, over under here on the Coach Daboll Show, presented by Stop and Shop. In the Giants' amazing Super Bowl season of 1986, they would simply dominate their NFC East rivals, the Washington Redskins. In their first meeting at Giants Stadium, Phil Simms would lead a balanced attack.
Simms, touchdown to Bobby Johnson.
And Joe Morris would explode with 181 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns.
And this is Joe Morris. Morris is gone.
In Week 14, the Giants would travel to the friendly confines of RFK Stadium.
This is my favorite spot in the NFL, playing in Washington, because we knew we were getting ready to walk in that dugout, and all those fans would be hanging over, and they were awesome. And one day I'm walking down that dugout, Parcells looked at me and goes, "You ready?" And I go, "Yeah, I'm ready, Coach." And he goes, Simms, they hate us so much here, they like us." I went, "Gotcha." Made sense to me.
And Simms would certainly find his comfort zone on the road, throwing 3 touchdowns on the day. As fate would have it, the 2 teams would meet up for a 3rd time in the NFC Championship, with a trip to the Super Bowl on the line.
The Giants won the toss and they're kicking off. Lovegray's kick goes way out of the end zone.
And of course the elements were so much a factor that day and wound up being a tremendous advantage for us, our ability to do things in the elements that Washington just couldn't do. We drove the ball into a 35 or 40 mile an hour wind for a touchdown.
Simms back to throw and that man open and it's Lionel Manuel, touchdown Giants.
That touchdown drive into the wind was the difference in the game because it took all the time off the clock for them to have the wind advantage.
So the Redskins will be going for it here on 4th. The fans are going to get up into it now, and they're going to make it tough for Schrader. Schrader handoff, and Rodgers is stopped.
As the clock was winding down, the one thought in my mind was, come a long way from 1976 when we first opened Giants Stadium. And these same fans are cheering us now because we've turned this ship around and we had a dominant year, and this really was a gift for the Giant fans.
When you win the championship, you know you're going to the Super Bowl. It's the greatest feeling in sports.
Welcome back to the Coach Daboll Show, presented by Stop and Shop. Giants take on Washington on Sunday. And Carl, we just saw a look back to 1986. You guys beat them 3 times. There was a healthy respect for Washington, and vice versa, wasn't there?
Yeah, absolutely, Bob. They were our legitimate biggest rival. Like, we had teams within the East that we hated, but the pure head-to-head rival was the Washington Redskins at that time, which are the Commanders now. But just the healthy respect for just 2 lunch pail types of teams that just went to work and just made the best man win.
And think about the Super Bowls. The Niners, the Bears, the Giants, and Washington were the teams that won the Super Bowls from the early part of the 80s right through into the 90s.
Yeah.
So that was the best of the best. Hey, now it's time for this week's edition of Over-Unders. We send it over to Madeline Burke.
All right, it's a Week 13 game time. We're talking over-under here. Madeline Burke, Sean O'Hara, Amani Toomer. Fellas, let's get right into it. Sean, I'll start with you on this one. Over-under plus 0.5 for the turnover differential for the Giants on Sunday against Washington.
Well, we're going decimal points here. I was told there'd be no math. I'm going to go with the theme of this game, the legacy game. Bring back that Giants gritty defense. I'm going to take the over on this because I think there's going to be turnovers here. I think when you look at Taylor Heineke, he's going to have one of those boneheaded plays where, oh man, I can't believe I made that throw. So I think we're going to have opportunities there. We've got to capitalize on it. But I think we get a sack force fumble out of Kayvon Thibodeau. He's due. He's been so close. And I think this Giants defense is going to be inspired by the legacy theme.
I'm going to go with the over as well. I just feel like Taylor Heineke is the guy that's going to cause some turnovers, just like Sean said. And also, I just think that, you know, the Giants defense is overdue for some turnovers. You all know that turnovers come in bunches. I think the bunch is going to happen this weekend with the Commanders.
Yeah, mentioning turnovers come in bunches. For the last 6 weeks for the Washington Commanders, they are +7 in the turnover differential. So they've had those bunches. I think we're going to have turnovers on both sides of the ball, but I'm going to go with the Giants too. I think the Kayvon Thibodeau is due. Let's take the over on that 0.5. All right, Amani, over under 35 rushing attempts by the Giants.
I hope there's over 35. So I'm going to say over because it's wishful thinking. I'm having my fingers crossed. I want Saquon Barkley to be really tired after the game, and I just feel like the best chance for this offense to get to level itself out is to run straight at them. To try to pass rush against this team for an entire game, that could lead to big problems. Rushing the ball right at them, getting physical, that's the way the Giants are going to have to do. Over on the 35.
Yeah, Monty, I'm with you. I'm going to take the over on this as well. The strength of this Washington Commanders defense is that front four. And, you know, with Chase Young probably being back for this game for his first time this season, I think that's going to be paramount. Run the football, but not just Saquon Barkley. I think Matt Breida has provided a lot of bursts when he comes in. And, of course, Daniel Jones is a weapon with his legs. So I'll take the over on 35 rushes.
I'm agreeing with you guys there as well. Over as well. Last week against Cowboys, 21 rushing attempts. Clearly, we saw that did not translate to success. Need to force the ball, as we talked about in the post-game show. Just kind of keep at it, pound the ball. Let's take the over on that 35. All right, another decimal point coming your way, Sean. Over under 3.5 NFC East teams that will make the playoffs.
Yeah, I don't even know how's that possible. A half team makes the playoffs. I'm going to take the under on this one. I don't think all 4 teams are going to make the playoffs, and here's why. These 4 teams, all these divisional games here down the stretch, somebody's going to eliminate somebody. We played the Washington Commanders twice in 3 weeks. We've got a lot of NFC East divisional games coming up, so I think some of that's going to equalize. I'll take the under.
I think that it's going to be under. I would love it to be over because that would mean the Giants are in the playoffs, but sometimes reality gets in the way.
Sometimes reality just is too real. I mean, at this point right now, if the playoffs started today, all 4 NFC East teams would be in the playoffs. But I don't think that's going to be the case, especially because of your point. I think they're beating up on each other these next few weeks. I'm going to take the under as well. I feel like 3 could make it, though. 3 is possible. Finally, Amani, over under 6 receptions by Saquon Barkley.
Ooh, I'm gonna go under. I don't want him catching the ball in the backfield. I want him running the ball. I want him running downhill, getting the ball where he's most comfortable when he's got speed going up the field. That is where I want to see him getting the ball. I don't want him to catch more than 6 because I don't think that the pass protection is going to be there for him to drop back 6 times to get the ball to Saquon.
Yeah, I'm going to take the under as well, Amani. And I think for Saquon, look, he's only had one game all season where he had 6 catches, and that was in week 1. But I want Darius Slayton to have all the catches and all the targets because he's big play Slay right now for us. So I'll take the under on Saquon with 6.
I'm going to go ahead and be agreeable and just take the under as well. I think Saquon Barkley needs to be committed in the run game, get this man going in that regard. Darius Slayton, 86. Feed that man in the passing game. Love to see it. All right, that's a wrap for Over Under. Week 13, the Giants host the Commanders Sunday afternoon at MetLife. Let's send it back to Bob and Carl in the Fieldhouse.
Carl, it's been a rough sledding for Saquon Barkley the last couple of weeks. The Giants have to get him going, whether it's with the run game or the passing game, a combination of both, because he lets everything else flow.
He does, Bob, but it helps when you have some consistency up front. There's been inconsistency at the interior of this line, and then with Evan Neal out, there are too many moving parts. Not an excuse. They still have to figure out a way to get it done. They'll get somebody's back this week, but the focus has to be to keep this offense on schedule. Saquon Barkley has to be a major part of it.
Yeah, and also not having Daniel Bellinger, the rookie tight end, has hurt that production as well. We're going to take a timeout. When we come back on the program, Carl Banks goes to the coach's tape with strategy here on the Coach Daboll Show, presented by Stop and Shop. Welcome back to the Coach Daboll Show, presented by Stop and Shop. Giants in Washington Sunday at MetLife Stadium. Strategy time with Carl Banks and Carl. Taylor Heineke, 5-1 as the starting quarterback this year. Numbers aren't off the charts, but he's got some big-time playmakers like Terry McLaurin.
Well, you don't need great numbers when you have playmakers like Terry McLaurin because he just puts the ball in the vicinity. McLaurin is a very, very good route runner, and you'll see here, quarterback can count on a guy. Great route to the top of the screen here. Let me just bring it back, Bob. This is the one thing about McLaurin that he does not get enough credit for as an elite receiver in this league, and he is an elite receiver. He can eat up the cushion here, you can see, but just watch the footwork. He sells it, gets the defensive back to bite on it. Now, take another look again. Here's Heineke. He stays in the pocket, knows where he's going with the football. He sets, he's patient. He knows his receiver will bail him out. Now, under pressure, this is where McLaurin is really good, and he's an asset to Heineke. So here we'll see Heineke when we call these off-platform throws, when things break down and he's got to move around. Now here's Heineke. He's moving, keeps moving. And that's not an easy throw to make, and it's not a big window there either. But McLaurin just keeps working with his quarterback here. Let's just take a look where he starts. He starts all the way over here. And he just keeps working. He knows the timing of the play, when the ball should be there, and he just keeps working, and his quarterback delivers to him.
You know, McLaurin's got 50-some-odd catches this year. You know, then you get to look at a guy like Curtis Samuel, who, Brooklyn native, he's got 48 catches, plus he's got 20-something rushes. He's a guy that they can use in a lot of different ways.
Well, again, the more useful these players are to this quarterback, the better. You can see Heineke moving around again. Another off-platform throw, off-schedule play. Guys are being available to him. And that's why this team is dangerous, because the players rally around him.
One of the things that Washington has is a tremendous defensive front. They have 30 sacks on the season, and they spread the wealth. There's a lot of talent that the Giants are going to have to deal with.
Yeah, first-round draft choice, first-round draft choice, first-round draft choice, first-round draft choice. And what they do, they can beat you collectively, or they can do it individually. Here is kind of a combination of both, and I just call it perpetual motion, because what they're going to end up doing is just attacking the interior of the line, but they're just moving. No real big stunts here, Bob. They just keep going, One guy takes the inside and the other guy just comes off. There's nothing special here other than the talent. He just takes an inside move and gets to the quarterback. The other guys are just pushing their guys.
Pretty simple.
Yeah.
Pretty simple. And the athleticism that these guys have, don't let their size fool you. These guys are unbelievable.
Yeah, and here it is again. Now they're going to use a fifth guy in the rush here. And what they want to do is give you a little bit of a disguise here and here to kind of confuse the back as to which guy is coming and which guy is dropping into coverage. They show both guys. One guy continues, the other one comes out in coverage. But just a delayed blitz, and again, when you look at this front, not a lot going on other than just good individual play. And you can see here, they just attack this area of the offensive line. Not one particular player, but you can see they all just go here, here, here. They're all coming to one area of your offensive line, and it opens up.
Yeah, and they figured out where Jacksonville's weakness was, and that's where they attack, and that's what they're going to do against the Giants. One more play to show them getting pass rush.
Yeah, another pass rush here. Again, just a two-man game, 4 guys, nothing special other than the talent that these guys possess.
Yeah, Payne just coming right up the middle and getting one of those 30 sacks for Washington so far this season. Strategy with Carl Banks is brought to you by PSE&G, providing safe, reliable energy now and in the future. When we come back, above the numbers and much more here on the Coach Daboll Show, presented by Stop & Shop. We're back here on the Coach Daboll Show, presented by Stop & Shop. Giants in Washington, 1 o'clock, MetLife Stadium. Legacy game as the Giants will wear their uniforms from the 80s and the 90s. Time for this week's edition of Above the Numbers.
Okay, so let's go above the numbers for the Giants game against Washington on Sunday. Amani, who do you have first?
I got Isaiah Hodgins. This guy's only been on the team for a month and already contributing. He had a good game last week, and I like to see his role increase. If he can be another option in the passing game, it could really set this offense into a whole nother stratosphere.
I think that's a pretty good pick. You know, he has made 2 consecutive starts, last week against Dallas. Career high 70% of the snaps in that game. And remember, when he was at Oregon State back in 2019, 86 catches for almost 1,200 yards and 13 touchdowns. So he does know how to produce. The Giants just got to bring some more out of him.
Absolutely.
Now, for my guy, I'm going with the big cat, Leonard Williams. Now, Leonard, over the past 5 games, he has been terrific. He is number 1 in the Giants with 27 tackles during that particular time. Also coming up with 9 quarterback hits, including 5 consecutive games. The guy is on fire, but here's what I need from him. Sacks. Only a sack and a half during that time, Amani. Got to get to the QB.
I also think they need some inside push for the pressure, and they also need to stop the running game. The run game is something that got away from them last week. If they can stop the run with Leonard Williams, I think we have a good shot.
Okay, Amani, so who do we have below the numbers this week?
Here we go. We got Curtis Samuel. He's an Ohio State guy, but I'm not going to hold that against him. I was really high on him at Ohio State. I thought he was going to be a very electric player, and obviously it took him a little while with his stint down in Carolina to come up to Washington. He's a dangerous guy. He is a game wrecker with his speed. So he's somebody that the defense has to take into account and make sure we know where he is at all times.
You mentioned his versatility. You know, folks, he is number 2 on Washington on the receiving charts. Also, though, number 3 on their rushing charts because of that dual capability. Last week against Atlanta, he only touched the ball as a running back. 3 on jet sweeps, once lining up as a halfback. They got to make sure they know where he's lined up. That'll do it for Above the Numbers this week. Let's go back to Bob.
Carl, as Leonard Williams is getting healthier, remember he had the knee injury, dealt with the elbow in training camp, his production level and everybody else around him goes up.
It does, and again, we talk about the off-ball linebackers. Their job is so much easier when he's healthy and Dexter Lawrence, but the athleticism of Leonard Williams allows this defense flexibility to move him inside and outside.
And the Giants going to need all hands on deck against a Washington team that can run the football effectively. When we come back on the program, Coach Daboll rejoins us for a preview of Washington. But as we take you to this commercial break, Leonard Williams was wired for sound against the Texans.
You better go down, boy. You damn right. He made eye contact with me. I was like, and he just laid down. He was like, you damn right. We back home, baby. Turn up today. Well, I'm to hold it on your. Oh, Go. We on first, baby. Yes, sir. Light him up. Take him to the deep end.
Play the ball game out as well, and the Giants say they have it, and the official says they do as well.
Let's go! Let's go!
Divisional game, like you said, a meaningful game in December, and this is where you want to be. These are the games you want to play in, so we're all fired up and can't wait to get out there.
Their quarterback, really, he's a guy who brings juice. I don't know how else to explain it. When he's in the game, there's a spark to this team, and we got to account for that.
Heineke throwing, and it's complete.
You have two good backs who run hard, big, strong guys, downhill guys.
Catch made by Robinson out of the backfield. He powers ahead. What a play by the rookie, and Washington jumps out in front. Brian Robinson.
I mean, I want to win. I don't care about my numbers. I don't care about, stats. The only stat I care about is our record.
I always say that the games in December matter most. Two division opponents. You can win a record, you can't ask for any better. So we're excited for it. I mean, Washington's going to be prepared, so I'm looking forward to it.
Welcome back to the Coach Daboll Show, presented by Stop and Shop. Legacy game when the Giants take on the Commanders at MetLife Stadium on Sunday. Coach, Washington has won 6 of their last 7. They haven't allowed 21 or more points in their last 8 games. Let's start with them offensively. Heineke's numbers aren't off the chart, but you can see there's a rallying point around him, and he's played well for them.
Yeah, what a competitor. I think the team really responds to him, looking at it from the outside in. He's tough, he's gritty, he plays with emotion. He's a fun guy to watch, and I think that the players around him, seems to me, have a lot of respect for him.
I don't know if you can give a comeback player of the year award to a rookie, but what Brian Robinson has done, the kid out of Alabama, who got shot in a carjacking, and now he had a couple touchdowns last week. Pretty impressive story.
Yeah, that's impressive in and of itself, but he's an impressive young man. He's from Tuscaloosa. He waited his turn to really get some playing time and play at the University of Alabama behind some really good backs. Didn't enter the transfer portal. He just kept competing, kept grinding, did everything that was asked from him there at the University of Alabama, and had a really good year last year. And this guy's a load. He's a great runner. He's powerful. He's instinctive. He's a hard guy to bring down, and I just think that's a testament to the young man of all the stuff he went through to get to an opportunity to play in the National Football League, and then unfortunately that happens, which is terrible. Thank God he's okay, and I just think he's what you're looking for in terms of a player and a person.
And when you look at their defensive front, right? I mean, you've faced a lot of them this year, really good ones, but this front seems to be in perpetual motion, and all individually good football players across the board. They pose a threat individually as well as collectively.
Yeah, I think that's what makes their team go, is their defensive front, and then Chase is probably coming back and going to be there. So you got 4 first-rounders up front that all present individual challenges, and then collectively, as a unit, they're tough to block both in the run and pass game. Get their hands on a lot of balls. You could see that against the Atlanta game where they ended up getting an interception at the end of the game, and just really good. Another defensive front that we're going to have to play well against.
Coach, are they exotic in some of the things they do, or is it just they're pretty talented?
Yeah, no, I'd say there's both. I think they have a good scheme, and then they also have talented players. And again, everything starts up front. Coach Rivera got a lot of respect for him, and you can tell his team is playing, tough-minded. They're running the football, they're stopping and run, not giving up many points. They're playing good in the kicking game and winning it in the fourth quarter. And what a resilient group to start out kind of a little bit slower, and then now all of a sudden, 6 of the last 7, like you said, there's a lot of confidence you can see showing on tape.
Just going back to the other side of the ball quickly, because, we know all the big-name wide receivers in the NFL. And Washington hasn't been a very successful program the last couple of years, but Terry McLaurin is as good as it gets, isn't he?
Unbelievable. Unbelievable person there, too, coming out of Ohio State. Fast, athletic, obviously a captain for their team, great person who, seems to make clutch plays and, has all the attributes you look for in a dynamic receiver.
Coach, we appreciate the time as always.
You got it. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Coach.
This week's game is presented by Quest, proud partner in health of the New York Giants. And remember, if you're coming to the game on Sunday, it's a legacy game. They're wearing the uniforms from the 80s and into the 1990s. That uniform produced a couple of Super Bowl champions. So for Coach Daboll, Carl Banks, and our entire crew, I'm Bob Papa. Thanks for joining us for this edition of the Coach Daboll Show, presented by Stop & Shop.